No hopping out the bed. No swag turned on. Just keeping up with the Kraken. Another episode here. Like Seattle Sports' Seattle Kraken weekly show. Myself as well as Jayd here. In case you don't know or you're angry at me, it is Charles. Um, there's not like I was just saying to Jayd before I hit the record button, there's not a lot going on with this team currently outside of their current playing situation, stuff that's relating to that. In terms of outside news, whether it be, trade rumors or stuff happening with organization, like there's not a lot going on. So, I mean, it's really just been about the hockey on the ice. And I mean, at least in that regard, like over the past calendar week, it's a winning week. It's 2 or 3. And with the one loss being to the league's like best team standings wise right now, it's not the worst thing in the world. Let me see if they're still top in points. Yep, 71 points. Tied with Winnipeg, but they've got the edge in points percentage. So, oh God. I hate looking at the National Hockey League standings. You've got Washington, Winnipeg, and then two of the teams in your division in Vegas and Edmonton. Like, shut up. Go away. Like, shut up. Oh my God. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's just gonna be that. There hasn't been much movement on the trade ground because the team is still winning at this current point in time, and they effectively haven't thrown the towel in. And until that happens, or until we get closer to the deadline, you know, stuff won't shake unless you're the Colorado Avalanche and you decide, hell, we don't want to try and re-sign Mikko Rantanen, or we can't and we'll send him to Carolina, and Chicago will be the chair in the corner of the room that's just going to watch.
Hmm.
Um,
Wild trade to get while you're commuting, by the way.
yeah,
That
no, I
was
mean, just kind of
batshit
crazy.
crazy, frankly.
I don't get that. Um, well, yeah, no, it's complicated. Um,
Yeah.
but um, hmm,
Go
yeah,
Birds.
to work. Sorry about that. I get distracted too easily. Yeah, like there's been no movement in that regard. I don't think Seattle's going to do anything until closer to the deadline. They might try something during the Four Nations, but I think that depends on how they finish out the time before then. We had it was Kids Day on Saturday, and they had the kid reporters, and the young man Michael asked, we got who do we get? Did you get Jared? Yeah, Jared,
Yep.
Vince, and Joey. Um, and he
And
was like, "What
Dan.
do you?" Oh, well, and Dan. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he asked him that too. Good point. He goes, "What do you want to accomplish in the next 7 games or so before the Four Nations?" I'm like, "It's not bad." Um, so yeah, we'll go into talking about the past week. For Seattle here, Monday, two of these games are also 1 o'clock start times. So glad to see. You said this earlier in the season that maybe they can start turning this around and playing better during the earlier games, and I
Hmm.
mean, they won these two. So, Monday against Buffalo, I mean, the Buffalo game a few weeks ago was just crazy because of that comeback. It was going to be really ugly to sit down and think, man, you lost to the Sabres team, even with the win streak that they had earlier in the year. Um, to lose to this Sabres team that's clearly just, I would say, in the lower echelon of the league, but you're also kind of there, unfortunately, so that doesn't really factor into that too much. But I don't know. I mean, to see you score 2 goals per period in this one, you don't really have a low shot total in any of the periods. You finish with 34. To see John Hayden score was nice. I mean, and
Hmm.
somewhat in quick succession after Jack Quinn scores. John Hayden picks up a rebound, which was nice. Chandler Stevenson's able to keep his goal total moving and his point total moving. Matty Benier scores on the power play. Um, Jamie Alexiak gets one. This was the game of, I think, odd scores, right? Because you get John Hayden, uh, kind of Chandler Stevenson, but he's been, again, point producer lately. Jamie Alexiak scores, and Adam Larson scores. And then Jared McCann gets an empty net goal, which I guess is nice, but I'm sure he
Mhm.
wants to do it with a goalie. So nice to do that in that regard. Buffalo, they have talent. They have undeniable talent on their team. You know, um, whether it is Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Zach Benson's young, the Sabres were without Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen for this game. They had Devin Levi in here. God, they have James Reimer. Forgot about that. Yuck. um, but anytime it's just so weird seeing this Seattle team be able to put up points and put up goals, um, and know that they can do that,
Mhm.
especially against the bad teams, and then just be frustrated that they can't do it. I'm not again expecting 2022-23 is not realistic, but I mean you see flashes of it, if
Yep.
essentially, which is just bizarre. So, that was that game. It was kind of weird to see Buffalo score in the final minutes to say, oh, shoot, like, you kind of have to, this one's kind of important.
Mhm.
Um, but they took care of business there, which was nice. And then you go to Thursday against Washington, and I didn't really know what to expect in this one, right? Just with how good the Capitals are this year, and how not so good Seattle is this year. But the Kraken, they played a solid first period. They give up two goals in the second, which wasn't great. They only shot the puck. Only got the puck on goal four times in that one, which is really bad. I mean, you have a bad frame against one of these teams, they're going to make you pay. And those two goals really came off of mistakes that Seattle made. That second one being, I think Capo Caco was on in the offensive zone on the blue line and you got stripped of the puck, and then it was essentially just a breakaway from there. Um, and then the third one for Washington was an empty netter. Ovechkin gets his 875th, putting him 20 away from passing Gretzky. And the other thing with Washington, they had Charlie Lindgren in goal. And I kind of was like, oh, cool, sick. It's not Tage Thompson, who has like been a world beater, and he shuts out the Kraken. I think that the number at the time was the sixth most shutouts in the league. No, sixth shutouts was tied for the most in the league this season, which
Mhm.
terrible. Um, and then to finish out the week, Pittsburgh on Saturday. Pittsburgh is always going to be interesting. I know they were hurt coming into this one. Brian Rust was unavailable. I think he got injured in the game they played previously against Anaheim. Um, Evgeny Malkin missed, I think, at least the third period, with an
I think it
awkward
was
collision.
most of the second
Most of the second, yeah.
or all of the second and the third.
I think he came out very briefly in the second, but just awkward collision with Chandler Stevenson. And the tough thing, especially when it was kind of like knee to knee or leg, like that could be really bad, or it could be
Mhm.
nothing. So hope for the best there. Um, I think someone said at one point Sidney Crosby seemed hurt, and I was like, "Wow, you're gonna take out the two old guys for
Yep,
Pittsburgh?
I
That's
saw that
really
as well.
bad."
And then there was a joke about Sidney Crosby coming back with a vengeance against Seattle, which didn't happen, luckily.
Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, and then at least in that game for the Kraken, like another scoreless first period, which wow, shocking.
Hmm.
Um, two goals in the second and third to really put this game on ice. Pittsburgh gets one in the second. Sidney Crosby scores. The Bjorkstrand goal to start the scoring was really nice. Turnover, I think, in the defensive zone, and then it was Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky pushing it up the ice. No, I think it was Bjorkstrand and Stevenson pushing the puck up the ice, and then Burakovsky got involved. Vince Dunn with a bomb from the blue line on a power play. With 5-on-3. I said 5-on-3. I wanted to look in Jade and be like, watch, they're not going to do anything with this.
I didn't
Uh,
think that they were going to, but
because, like, you know, um, but yeah, Ellie Tolvanen gets one in the third, and then Maddie does to really put this game on ice. There's no empty net goals. And the Kraken sweep the season series against Pittsburgh 2-0. So Jade, seeing all three of these games, what did you take away from this? Because again, it's another winning week. If we go back to last week, um, not including the Detroit game on the 12th, but last week on the 13th episode, we talked about, you know, um, oh, the last week's episode that aired on the 20th. Sorry. We talked about the week of the 13th through the 19th. You beat Pittsburgh, you lose to Winnipeg barely, and then you beat the Kings. I mean, this is another winning week, right? Which is
Hmm.
good. Normal in a vacuum, this is successful, but given where you are in the standings and given how things have gone for you, you kind of need to win essentially every game, unfortunately. And this leaves you 8 points right now out of a wild card spot, where Calgary sits in that regard. And you'd have to pass up Vancouver, who is also in your division as well. So I don't know. Just all things considered, what did you think of the past week and how do you feel about the team currently?
Um, the past week was a good glimpse into what the Kraken are capable of. It was a good glimpse into their ability to win, but I don't think that they can keep that going, honestly. There's a pretty tough stretch coming up with, hold on one second. I know it's like Edmonton and then Anaheim, San Jose.
But I think it really gets dangerous in that first week of February. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you got Calgary, Detroit, and then, and Calgary bookends this 4 games in a week. Calgary,
Hmm.
Detroit, Toronto. Then you go
And
on the
then
road to
Calgary again.
Calgary. Yeah.
And then you have the break and then you go on the road and play the
This
Panthers.
that's a hell of a back-to-back against Florida and then Tampa Bay. I do
Yep.
not like that. Oh.
So I think that this winning week was something that the team needed, maybe to boost morale a little bit. I think that, it might put the fans at ease a little bit, but given the history with Anaheim and San Jose so far this year, I'm not feeling very confident. Um, I think the Kraken have it in them to win the games. I just don't know that they will be able to pull that off. Um, in terms of like play though, the past week, it was pretty good. There was a little bit of like laziness isn't quite the right word for the Penguins game. It felt like it was lagging a little bit though. Like in the beginning of the first period, it felt like there was a lot of drive and compete happening. There was a lot of like puck battles and things like that that I was seeing, but then as it got towards the end of the second period, it felt like that kind of tapered off a little bit. So I don't know. I'm still kind of just feeling like neutral about the team this year, honestly, and what they're
Sure.
capable of.
It's yeah, I mean, like
Like you
the
might have it
belief.
in you, you might have it in you, but you're just not pulling it off the way that you should be.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Especially
I think
given the assets on the team currently,
yeah.
which Stevenson, two-time Stanley Cup winner. I just talked about that tonight, which is why that's on the top of my brain. But two-time Stanley Cup winner who is, racking up points and doing his best to create plays, but then you're just not seeing the plays connect. And Montour, who's just coming off of a cup win, and Mahura, who's also just coming off of a cup win. It's just you're not seeing what you should be seeing.
Okay. I see what you're saying in terms of having the winners. Yeah, well, that's the thing
Hmm.
too, is I mean, you've got like even with the expansion team group, you had Stanley Cup winners and guys like
Yeah.
Jaden Schwartz and Vince Dunn. Um, I know there are others there, but yeah, I think like my belief for anything greater for this team kind of went out the window when I realized they weren't able to do things consistently. Like
Hmm.
again, you score like two, four, six. In 4 of your last 6 games, you've scored 4 or more goals. Like it's nice to see that offense continue to work. Um, you scored 6 in Buffalo, but that's Buffalo. You've played some of the top teams in the league tight, including, the Devils back on the 6th, and then Winnipeg on the 16th, and then I would throw in the Washington game as well if you take away the empty netter.
Hmm.
Um, you know, like that is something too that I've said this before on the show. The Kraken have done that over the course of their existence. They've played the like the best team in the leagues tight normally, um, whether it is sneaking wins or not. Um, but it's like obviously the other games that matter. So uh
I
like
also
last
kind of
year's team was just so good defensively or so scrappy that if they made the playoffs, it would have been helpful, but they didn't.
mhm.
Like, so
I
yeah,
also
you're
kind
gonna
of want to
say?
clarify, like I'm not expecting the Kraken to make playoffs or frankly even come close to making playoffs this year. The Stanley Cup talk is more just like I expect a little bit more from players that have recently come off of a cup win in terms not even maybe more, but like just a different game, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. Like,
Hmm.
so yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't really want to get into a whole like future of the franchise discussion because
Yeah.
at this point we've done that already, and everyone else who does these shows has done that.
Hmm.
But again, I do think they can compete. I know I saw on a group chat where and they're like, "Oh, Kraken made the playoffs." So they mean this year or in 5 years? I'm like, they'll make it before then. I think they
Yep.
will. But if
I
they're gonna do
agree.
so, it requires like serious retooling and willingness to make change. Oh, Siri just opened on my phone. Shut up. Like different team and different sport and all that. But the Rain this year, this off season, they made some significant changes in terms of letting some key veterans go that I never thought that they would let go or even or at least not without, an attempt to bring them back. And I was like, wow, so they're ready to do this. Um, I need the Kraken to do that. And I don't know if that happens if Ron Francis is still your general manager, or if he gets pushed up to a different position, like president of hockey ops or something within the organization, because of how like well versed he is in this organization right now. So, you know, I don't know. It's tricky, but I think it can be done. I really do. Like, I don't want to put anything out of the realm of possibility, especially with the Rontanen trade that happened. So, like,
Hmm.
um, that pushes us to a different topic that it's related to the team and excuse me, how they've been playing. Joey Daccord has played in 9 consecutive games, I believe it is, for the Kraken. That's not all starts because there were 2 games that he came in after Philip Grubauer got pulled, and obviously with those games, going back to them, those weren't really Grubauer's fault. But in hockey, it's change the goalie, give your team a spark. Um, it's interesting, because this was last season they did this where they would just give Joey extended runs, and he's dealt with injuries here and there, whether it be last season or this year, right? Suffering that injury in the practice before the Colorado game, and then kind of dealing with that. You had to ride Grubauer a bit, and you had Stezka up here. Um, this just brings in 2 things. One, this is who you've effectively chosen to be your franchise goalie, right? With the extension you gave him this past off season. Um, how like how can you keep doing this if you want him to be around in the long term? Because if you keep riding him, the chances of injury go way up, of course.
Hmm.
Especially with how much of a workload he does have to, take on upon himself with the defensive play, and we'll talk about that next. Um, that and if like a lot of people, I think a month ago, really accepted that Seattle wasn't going anywhere and that, this was a wash of a season, unfortunately. But when you're putting Joey Daccord out there, who, as much as I do believe in Philip Grubauer on a night to night basis and think he doesn't get a fair rap, he never has, like Joey Daccord gives you the best chance to win at this point. Um, like when you play him that much, this is saying we are trying to win games.
Hmm.
And yes, while you should probably, get some goodwill back with this fan base, and the home fan base and the season ticket holders by getting wins at home, like this isn't sustainable. This is dangerous to do when you get to this. This is like Dave Hackstall level of goalie riding.
Hmm.
Um, just I don't know. What do you think about this management? Because at this point, before the break, like they play every other day effectively. They've done so, yeah, and then in that week of February, they play every other day. They have by the time this comes out, it'll be the day of the Edmonton game, and that's the first of a back-to-back. They have the 29th off. They play the Sharks on the 30th. Oh, okay, I lied. They have 2 days off after that. But you get the 31st and the 1st are not games. Calgary, the third is off. The fourth is Detroit. The fifth is off. Yeah, the sixth is Toronto, and the seventh is off. And then you go and play Calgary before you get essentially 2 full weeks of a break before a back-to-back against Florida and Tampa Bay. So I don't know. What do you think about his workload currently, and how they might approach it for the rest of the season? Because I mean, unless they win out, or essentially win a bunch, and you keep seeing teams in front of you in the wild card fall, like this is going to be all for nothing.
I think that the workload's a little bit too heavy personally. I don't, oh, at this point, they're so far out of the wild card that it almost doesn't matter what goalie you play. Just, I don't know. I'm in a very Flyers mindset where it's like tank
Eh,
and rebuild, and tank and get the first round pick, or the first overall pick. Tank and get a better overall pick, and nothing matters anymore. That's not quite the mindset that I have for the Kraken. But also you can't overwork goalie, because at the end of the day, they're usually the ones that are there doing more for the team than any of the players. Not that that's fair for them, but I don't know. I would like to see more Grubauer starts. I think that when Joey was injured, we saw a lot of the better side of Grubauer, and I would like to kind of see that amplified a little bit, if that makes sense. Like I would like to see more of the better Grubauer, but that there's not the option for that because they just keep starting Joey. Um, so I don't know. I am not a fan of how many starts he's had. I think that it's I don't know, like I had a word and then I lost it. Um, Not good overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just not great for me when I'm expecting Grubauer to come in cold off of this. Yeah, this is 9 games in a row Joey has played.
Hmm.
Um, like it's you
I
know
guess kind of a good comparison. I talked to you about this a little bit before the Penguins game. I think, yeah, it was the Penguins game. The Flyers benched one of their goalies for a month, and which that's the only comparison for teams that I have. But they benched one of their goalies for a month, and then he came in and played a pretty good game, I think, or maybe, yeah, I think it was like an all right game, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he just pulled that off." And it's just not good to bench a goalie for that long, especially because the Kraken don't really have another NHL caliber goalie. So if something
yeah,
happens to Joey and then Grubauer has to fill in, and then something happens to Grubauer and Joey's not ready to come back, then you're
yeah,
stuck
you're screwed.
playing. Yep, you're playing an AHL
So
level goalie. That's yeah. So the
who's
whole
never
thing I think is
debuted.
unsustainable.
Yeah, no, and it gets like, and this isn't a discussion about you know going forward because inevitably, I imagine that Grubauer gets bought out this offseason, and then they have to figure out something because Nicky Coco will not be ready by next season. As much as he's shown out in some games down in CV and he looked good in the preseason and the camp, like he's not going to be ready
Hmm.
by next season. I think people need to understand that. They get excited, and I'm like, nope, that's just not how development works.
Yep.
Um, and Stezka, like he's great, but he's just kind of been a career AHLer, and he hasn't really been. I like I we did this when we talked about goalies a while ago. But I didn't realize he didn't hadn't like been over in North America that long. Like he had just come over from, well, not just, but yeah, oh, well, oh, yeah, no, he had gone back to Czechia. Yeah, because he was last in America in 2016-17 with Chicago Steel, the USHL. He went to Czechia from then until he signed with the Firebirds in 2023-24. Yes, God. Um, so yeah, he's never played in the NHL. Highest he's gotten is currently the AHL, and I mean he's kind of an older guy, 28, to be a rookie there. So yeah, and then Coco's not ready, and then you're not dipping into the ECHL, I hope. Like
Hmm.
so, and I don't really know who's on the market um currently for excuse me, if you wanted to bring out a guy, not trade wise, like I don't think they're trading for a goalie right now. That'd be pretty impossible. Um, let's see who's available right now, goalie wise. Nope, I do not want 2024. I want right now. This sucks. What? Um, oh, it tried to put me to 2023. Nope, 2033. Goaltenders. Nope. Hello? Okay. I'm just gonna assume there's not that much out there. So,
No.
it's just, yeah, I think it's interesting for the fact that you want to keep your franchise goalie healthy. You want to keep him
Hmm.
around. But also like you're choosing to go out there and put your best effort out. Like you're doing the most, excuse me, effectively to win these games. And it could all be for naught. Like, are you going to play? You cannot play him. You can't play him for the back to back, obviously. So
Hmm.
I was saying this, unfortunately, like I thought wrong on the 24th. Grubauer went through all the things that essentially the starter would do on a game day. And I thought, oh, this makes sense because they have a 1 o'clock start tomorrow. Like they can't do any of that morning. And I thought, okay, Joey at that time had played 8 games in a row. Um, let's give Grubauer a start before the back to back. So he's somewhat back to, ready to see, game shape.
Hmm.
What I'm worried about is that they're going to put Grubauer out there on Monday against Edmonton, which is Connor McDavid's first game back from suspension, have him get slaughtered because of how bad they look defensively, which is what we'll talk about next and here shortly. And then Joey will go back to this workload until the break.
Yep.
Like it would be really nice. Like I don't like the idea of 10 straight starts or 10 straight games, but put Joey out there against Edmonton. Like,
Hmm.
give your best chance to win and have Gruby play. Um, you could have Gruby play the next 2 games, against Anaheim and San Jose. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, defensively, it's interesting. This is kind of a more open-ended thing because Seattle has been really sloppy defensively since really the beginning of December. I remember we started the show around that time. I was so excited because they had played who was it? Florida so well defensively. They had clogged the middle of the ice. Yeah, Florida, they beat the hell out of Boston, and then the Tampa Bay game happened, and then you go on this streak of losing to Tampa Bay. Ottawa at home, you get shut out. Chicago on the road, Vegas on the road, and then Colorado, and then you get the break. And then there's the wacky Buku Vancouver game, and then we go on from there.
Hmm.
Um, the blue line is an interesting topic because you're paying a lot of money there from top to bottom, whether it's the Larson Dunn pairing where they give Larson the extension, which was an interesting one just because he's a little older. Um, you give him that extension. You keep him happy. You keep obviously Vince Dunn happy. You gave Vince Dunn the extension not last offseason, but the offseason before, I believe. Um, excuse me. Obviously, you paid a lot of money to Brandon Montour, and I feel like that's all well earned despite not producing points as of late. Jamie Alexiak's making a good chunk of money, and then you get down to Riker Evans and Josh Mahura. Riker Evans still on his well, on the last year of his ELC, and then Josh Mahura essentially making league minimum. I don't know. What have you seen defensively? Like there are some goals like the 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 Kako the turnover the second goal for Washington this past game that they played uh and I think some people initially put the blame on Dunn Larson. I'm like, well, like Kako was the one at the top of the ice. Like I don't really blame him for that one. It's like yes, he could have gotten back, I guess, but I don't know. Um, but it just feels like with a blue line that's not that bad. Like they're not bad players. They're getting
Hmm.
overpaid. Um, but like it's obvious that things haven't really worked out this year, and maybe it is like with how they don't understand what Bob Woods is giving them, defensively as their new D coach, or it just you hear about miscommunications. Like there have been goals where it's been broken down. One of the D-men's pointing to the other to get that guy, and he doesn't do it, and he stays in the middle of the ice, and it leaves someone back door. Like you can go down and break down a lot of these goals and see where things don't get picked up or left alone. You know, I don't know, Jayd. What do you think about these defensive issues and like I don't know. Like at this point, how do you fix that sort of thing, right? Because I mean, they've made a change. They put Alexiak and Montour. They split that up, and they've got Montour and Evans and Alexiak and Mahura. Um, and now essentially Jamie Alexiak's making third pairing money, which that's that's no. Like I don't know. I know our buddies at ECH proposed on their last podcast. They proposed breaking up that blue line a bit. Um, depending on what becomes available, and it won't make people happy. Like what you'd have to go and listen to what they said, but the ideas of trading a Dunn or a Larson came into mind. They didn't talk about trading Alexiak as much, which I thought was fascinating. I was like, I would get rid of that contract as soon as I can. Um, but I don't know, just and not specifically that, but just defensively, what have you seen and what are your thoughts? I mean, because this has been an issue all season. Like outside of a games here and there, which I got excited about in December, like they've
Hmm.
just made some dumb mistakes.
You summed up a lot of my thoughts. The only thing that I could think of is, I don't know. I would I would basically say everything that you just said. My only thought for like maybe switching up some of the D pairings is I know that Brandon Montour and Mahura have some chemistry, they've played together for a while, and when they first came here, they made jokes about like uh I think it was Mahura made a joke about like I just go everywhere Montour goes or or vice versa, whatever. Um so I don't know. I would maybe see how they do, but then also that are you putting the Montour contract onto a third line, or are you moving Mahura up when he hasn't quite earned it, I guess? But I don't know. I The blue line is something that has had me scratching my head quite a bit for some time now. Um, and I haven't listened to the ECH opinions about it, but I'm sure I would agree with them, just given my own personal opinions and thoughts. But yeah, there's something's got to give at some point, and I just don't know. I just don't know. I feel like forwards are so much easier to kind of like speculate and, move this person and switch around this pairing or whatever. And then you get to the blue line and it's like, okay, this is a little bit more intense because there's got to be some, like a little bit more chemistry, I guess, between the two players where they can kind of read each other. They can see what the other person is going to start doing. Um, yeah, I don't know.
It's yeah,
The
I
blue line is tough.
it is, and especially because of how much money you've dedicated to it. Like
Hmm. You have
especially in the
24
last
point almost $8 million just this season dedicated to the blue line.
I was like, there's a lot more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And And there's a lot of term as well. With
Mm-hmm.
Larson getting that much money, I don't know how much longer Vince is.
Till
Um,
27, 28, and
okay,
then
next few
Larson
years.
and Montour both 28, 29, I think.
Oh, Jesus. Um,
And then
yeah,
Alexiak is 26, 27.
yeah, get that out of here. Get it out of here. Um, yeah, I mean, in my mind, I would like to like I'd keep I like unfortunately the guys that I would move from this are Alexiak and Larson. As much as it pairs me to say Larson, I would move that. The only thing
Mhm.
is with Larson, this year he's got a modified no trade, and then the next 2 years he's got a no trade. So you'd either have to do that this year to one of the teams he'd be okay with, or ask him to waive it um over the next 2 years. So you're stuck in that contract, and he's 32. Alexiak, you've got through what does he have? That's also one of the
Yeah.
things with the Ron Francis contracts. Like if you look at the top four of these D men, they all have something. And then same with so many of these forwards as well. They all have some sort of no trade or something like that. People want to move, the Burakovsky stuff. He's got a modified no trades to the next 3 years. Oh Jesus, yeah. Chandler Stevenson has a no move clause through the next 4 years. Oh Jesus Christ. Uh, um,
I see. I know I'm a little bit biased in this, but I'm a little bit of a Stevenson truther because he's not quite doing what everybody's expecting him to do, but he's doing okay given his past gameplay with other teams.
sure, yeah, no, and that's the thing is like if he's able to produce how he has been, it doesn't like
Hmm.
make up for his contract, but it's much more stomachable.
Yep.
Um,
His contract is maybe a bit much, but it does
yeah,
make it better when you look at
sure. Like
overall everything.
there are other contracts you need to move from that group, whether it's
Hmm.
Burakovsky, um,
Gord.
Tanev, Board will have to move with that 5 million, or if you want him back next year on a much cheaper deal,
Hmm.
um, yeah, Tanev's got to move, and then you just kind of get to the lower echelon. Kako's got to get paid, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, no, it's unfortunate to say, but the contracts I'd move, I say unfortunate, largely looking at Larson. Um, and his numbers have been down at least by his standards this year, and at least by going off of the hockey stat cards over the last few games, not the Spur game because obviously Vince had a better game in that one, but like the hockey stat cards have really not liked that pairing over the last few games. So
Yep.
I don't know. It's interesting defensively, and I wonder how much of that is their new D coach and Bob Woods. Like people are so ready to jump on just like a Campbell when it comes to the power play and that, and probably because of her being a woman. But
Hmm.
like with the defensive issues, and I think a lot of the casual fans don't get that. Like your Kraken fan page will just immediately go to a group hour, or someone will go to the goalie. They won't do it for Joey though.
No,
Um,
never.
and they'll just go straight to again, I've talked about it. Like just like with a hitting coach, it's largely up to the players when they step in the batter's box to execute. Same thing with the power play. Like if you could drop the best play ever and it's got, put the defenders in motion. I think like using what Jared McCann was talking about on the 5-on-3, push the defenders in motion, all this and that, and get the look that you want. And if they don't execute, they don't complete the pass, they turn the puck over. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so it's like I don't know. So
Uh,
it goes back to that is how much of that is maybe Bob Woods either not communicating what he's trying to teach the best or they're not executing it.
mhm. I also just looked at Money Puck super quick, which I know is something that you and I both reference quite a bit. And um, the Dunn Larson pairing for total lines, offensive and defensive, is 11th this year, which I don't know if that was the case last year. Let me look really quick. Um, oh no, just kidding. Last year is a little bit more meddled because there was a lot of pairs that played a little bit more. But Dunn Larson this year is 11th, which is not great. Dunn Montour is fourth. in production.
Jesus.
So, yep, I'm inclined to agree with you. That's playing 55 minutes or more, which isn't that much, but that's kind of the standard that I tend to set things at because I feel like that gives you a little bit more of like, okay, or 60 minutes. That gives you a little bit more of a, you've played one full game, kind of what's going on here. So, um, yeah, I've also been inclined to agree with you on the moving the Larson contract.
It's
Sent with
just
invisible ink
tough.
for everybody that listens to this.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. But at the same time, like also, this is just an ACH plug at this point, but listening to their armchair GM, they floated the idea of like Vince Dunn for Jason Robertson in case like Dallas is looking for a D. Obviously, Seattle needs talent. People are like, oh, I don't know if I'd move Vince Dunn for that. I'm like, do you not understand the caliber? I'm not saying this just as a Filipino either. The caliber of forward that Jason Robertson is, like, he
Hmm.
is miles better than what the Kraken have right now at
Yep.
forward. Like, I think some of this is like not maybe knowing, you know, there are going to be tough decisions made over the next few years as Seattle moves out of the expansion draft era.
Hmm.
Like you're not gonna see you're gonna move especially down. You're gonna be without Burakovsky, probably Jaden Schwartz, uh
Which
Yanni
that's kind of a
Gord.
bummer to me with my 17 1084 love, but it's fine. Somebody will
Yeah,
replace him.
it's just you get that. And it's funny already looking at the bottom of the forward list money wise, and it's already so different in that regard. Like 10 have gone. Who knows if Everly will still be playing? Um, but like I would look at the little injury thing and it just says Elvis. Thanks, great, awesome.
Hopeful.
Um, Lexiak gone. Depending on what they do, Larson might be gone. Grubauer gone. Like you'll see a lot of this gone, and we'll move into this next era, and it's just necessary. I mean, when you've got guys like Bertley Catton, that you've already signed to an ELC as a 19-year-old.
Hmm.
Edward Shale, Jagger Firkus, Yanni Newman, Carson Raykop. Um, the defenseman side, I don't know how well Lucas Dragicevic has been, but he signed his ELC already. Vileo Tavainen might be ready at some point. Ty Nelson, Caden, like you've got these guys who you've drafted. This is all part of a franchise, right?
Hmm.
Like there will be the big moves and shit like that. Well, there you go. That will happen.
Took you a while this
So,
time.
you know, but anyway, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like you will have to accept the change at some point, which is
Hmm.
tough. Like, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but you saw how badly things blew up about Will Borgen. Like things will get worse when those other traders, sorry, players either get traded or leave in
Yep.
some other regard, So
And yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's gonna be interesting. Um, just as a fan base and as the franchise tries to, they will have to accept a new era. So
Hmm.
anyway, the uh hmm, the week ahead is an interesting one, Jade.
Sure is.
Yeah, it starts with that excuse me. It starts with that Edmonton game that is happening the day that this comes out at Edmonton, 6:30 p.m. start, Kraken Hockey Network and Kong. Yeah, that is the first game for the Oilers that they'll get Connor McDavid back from suspension. Excuse me, goodness. And I mean, they already sit at second in the Pacific. I think what fourth I read overall in the standings. God, how have they done lately? I have to look at this. I don't want the Rogers game calendar. I just want your schedule, dog. What the hell? I want to see how you've done in recent games. Is this so difficult to ask? There we go. Um, how have you played lately? Beat the King. So wait, let's see. 4-7. Oh, sick. They've won 6 of their last 7 games.
Yep.
Wonderful. Even better. Uh, what is this? 8 of their last 10. This is just great. This is just great. Oh, well, let's make it better. 10 of their last 12. Mm.
Cool.
This is great. And they're getting McDavid back. He's scoring like 7 goals. This is going to be wonderful. Yeah, they
McDavid
put
dick trick.
they punched the Canucks in the mouth on Thursday with a 6-2 win. They barely beat Buffalo. Don't understand that. They did lose to Washington by 1 goal. So there's that. I think that was the first game of his suspension. Um, yeah. So that'll be tough. Then the next game they play Anaheim at home at 7 o'clock. We'll see how that goes. I think that's the first game they'll play against Anaheim since they beat them before that ugly stretch of games for Seattle.
Yep.
Oh, nope.
No?
Seattle lost. Oh, that's right. Seattle lost 2 days later, 5-2. Yep. So you're
Oh,
looking
okay.
to take the season series. You're tied 1-1 right now. Then you play the Sharks, and I think this is the first game since.
God,
Oh
those are,
no, you've lost the first 2 games of the series. That's right. Yeah, you lost that horrible game. Then you lost 4-2. That's right. That was the last game before December.
yep.
Uh,
The last two games before December because it was the
back. Yeah.
29th and the 30th in November,
Yep.
5-8, and then a 2-4 loss.
So they play the Sharks there on Thursday. They get Friday and Saturday off before Sunday when they play Calgary at 6 o'clock. So
And Thursday is a 7:30 start.
that's
Just
right.
for
And it's on
everyone listening.
ESPN.
Yep. I looked at that the other
Oh
day and I was like, there's no way it's 7:30. And then I was like, nope, yep, that's 7:30. Cool.
boy. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, with how they've played in the last 2 weeks, like I feel a little bit better about their chances, immediately, but the concern for how much they'll use Joey Daccord, um, and like their ability to just fall completely on their face and just be terrible, like still
Hmm.
exists. So, it's an interesting time for this franchise. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, for that, and we'll use this last clip to say Joey Daccord hates me, at least hates my Premier League team. He's a Man United guy, and I'm an Arsenal guy. Joey Daccord is perfect in a lot of ways. His Premier League team is not one of them. Sorry, Joey. I will send this to you. Anyway, until we see you next week, we'll probably figure out what we have to do in terms of recording for next week's show because that Calgary game um is on a Sunday, but we'll figure it out. So until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. Where are you going to watch all those Kraken away games?
Kraken away games, making a push. I was thinking of coming here just because Rough and Tumble is the home of circling Seattle sports, only if that's okay with you.
I mean, I love that idea. Hope to see you here.